Once upon a time, Drew and I were dumpster diving across the internet trying to find trashy movies to watch. And Drew came across a trailer for a 1993 movie starring Drew Barrymore called
Doppelganger.
And if you watch this trailer, you'll see some text appear very briefly on the screen that says the word Gerdop for just an instant. But the word Gerdop would go on to define our experience with this film.
And I made a claim that the movie could not live up to the glory that was Gerdop. And I am so happy to say that I was 100% wrong. Greetings, loyal listeners and new recruits. I'm Drew Deitch.
I'm Travis Newton.
And this is GenreVision.
GenreVision is a weekly movie club where we discuss horror films, action movies, fantasy flicks, sci-fi cinema, and more.
And we are closing out Genre Romance Month with maybe a movie that doesn't fit that mold. There is romance in it, but boy, we're talking about Doppelganger, the, at this point I have to call it, totally forgotten 1993 suspense horror thriller starring Drew Barrymore. This was a total blind find from both Travis and I, and it looked like trashy erotic thriller, just pulp that we love. And we were like, oh, and then of course, there was the entire backstory of Gerdop. If you actually go to the GenreVision Patreon, patreon.com/GenreVision, you can listen to us rediscovering Gerdop and having the biggest laughing fit we've ever had, quite possibly on the show, and which led to us scheduling it for this month. And so we went into Doppelganger like, you know what, it can't be as funny as this event that we had happen because of the trailer and now this lore that we've built up around it. But it turns out that there's a lot more going on in Doppelganger than I could have ever anticipated.
So within the first 5 minutes, this movie is already like totally nutso. So we're introduced to Drew Barrymore's character, and she's stalking around the streets of New York with her scarf wrapped around her face and these big sunglasses on, like she's going to fucking Grey Gardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So within the first 5 minutes, we see this character fuck some dude and then murder some lady. And there's no ambiguity to it. It's not like, oh, is it Drew Barrymore's character? They're dressed exactly the same. No, you see Drew Barrymore's face. She takes out a big knife, stabs some woman in the heart. It's bloody. It's Argento as fuck. There's blood spraying everywhere. And you're like, whoa, this is very giallo. What's going on?
Her nose also begins bleeding when she's standing outside the door of this woman. And this woman, it is her mother. It's said that she's, I'm her mother. And she's talking about that little bitch is going to get it all or something. And then she hears that Drew Barrymore's there at the door and she's like, oh, I'm coming, sweetie. And we cut back to Drew Barrymore and there's this really good close up on her face and blood's coming out of her nose. And then we cut to a close up of her hand and there's like KY jelly goo forming between the webbing of her fingers. It's like, whoa. What the fuck is this?
And then in the scene where she bangs that dude, we see a reflection in the guy's glasses, but it does not look like Drew Barrymore's face. And we're going, what?
Not only does it not look like Drew Barrymore's face, it looks like Frank from Hellraiser.
Yeah, it looks like an inhuman face. It's like, what's going on here? And we see it for just a moment before the images fades down and we cut to credits and it's like, okay.
Well, this is when the credits are going on. And fun fact, the mother character who gets stabbed right in the chest and explodes with blood is Drew Barrymore's real mother, which just adds a whole nother level of what's going on here to this. Suffice to say that this credit sequence, immediate hook of an opening.
Sure. Yeah. It's a killer 5 minutes of cinema where you're just like, what the fuck am I seeing here? There was also like weird cuts to like, I don't know, visions of trees and stuff like that where you're like, there's some crazy Lynchian shit going on here.
Also, whatever that thing was that was reflected in the guy's Dennis Christopher, the actor who most people might know from the It miniseries. He played the adult Eddie Kasprak. He's also in a pretty good movie called Fade to Black. Whatever that thing was in the reflection of his glasses, we see superimposed like underneath Drew Barrymore's face as she's like rolling her eyes back and having visions of trees swishing around. I could not have written a better opening to absolutely pull the rug out from what I expected this movie to be.
I almost want to say it's a stellar 5 minutes of filmmaking, but really what it is it's an incredibly engaging 5 minutes of filmmaking that makes you go, whoa, 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 whoa. What is this? What's going on? It's, from a mystery standpoint, it's very hooky. It grabs you.
There's good filmmaking going on in this. Like I said, the close up of Barrymore with her nose bleeding is wonderful. The actual outside shots when she's walking to the apartment to go kill her mother, it looks good. Again, this isn't, it's not going to win any awards for incredible obvious style, but it's not bad filmmaking by any means.
It strikes me as kind of like a very abstract take on a cold open, like a TV cold open. Like, if you've ever seen an episode of the show House, like that,
right.
That show is kind of renowned for its cold opens and like misdirects and rug pulls and stuff like that. All to hook you in the first 5 minutes of the show. And
often very extreme body horror, which,
yes.
This is doing that. It's like, but it's extreme. It's like, okay, why is goo coming out of her hand? And what is this? Well, then we meet our other protagonist who's really the protagonist of the movie.
Yeah, he's the perspective character of the film. The film transitions from New York to LA in this moment, and we do have some scenes at this point with Drew Barrymore's character as she's riding in a taxi and arrives at a apartment building somewhere in LA. And she meets this guy who is renting out a room in his apartment. It's played by the actor George Newbern. The character's name is Patrick Highsmith.
And he's a writer. He's a very 90s LA writer looking person. I never got the sense that these were actually his writings, but he seems to have clippings of like The Sun and like Weekly World News type stuff plastered all over his walls.
He seems to be obsessed with like Bat Boy, like National Enquirer shit.
Well, he's
UFOs.
He seems to just be also just a horror fan, because when asked what he's writing, he says he's trying to write Breakfast at Tiffany's as a horror movie.
Sure.
So he just seems to, like this stuff. So immediately it's like, okay, this feels very self-insert a bit, only to find out that the writer-director of Doppelganger, Avi Nesher, went on after this to use the pseudonym Patrick Highsmith as a writing pseudonym for other movies that he also directed.
Yeah. Now, this whole pseudonym Patrick Highsmith is a clear nod to Patricia Highsmith, who was the novelist who wrote the Tom Ripley novels. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, right. Like the whole Tom Ripley thing is like, he's this con artist who will like become somebody's doppelganger to assume their identity. Like if you've ever seen The Talented Mr. Ripley, that's Matt Damon character Tom Ripley sort of assumes someone else's identity and takes over his life. So there's doppelganger horror there. And so I don't know if Avi Nesher was just like a particular fan of Patricia Highsmith fiction, or, he was trying to make some sort of, deeper nod to the Tom Ripley stuff, but either way, it's here.
Yeah. I mean, if you know about that, there is a connection. So the story then begins that Holly Goodley, which, come on, you can't write a better perfect angelic character name than that.
Holly Gooding, by the way.
Gooding.
Holly
Okay.
Gooding.
I thought it was Goodley.
Close enough.
Yes. Good Nicely is her name. And so she takes the apartment, and after this scene, they're kind of meet cute. She's asking about the place, and he's being a particular brand of 90s Gen X nebbish. Like it's like cool nebbishness as opposed to like the usual absolutely dorky and kind of off-putting nebbishness.
It's this weird nerdy stereotype of like a struggling, wannabe screenwriter in LA in like the Sundance Baby era.
Right.
Or just before it.
So he, then we cut to this diner scene where he is, there's some stuff that happens before this in the diner, in which it's this diner that apparently he and his writing partner always are hanging out at. And we're introduced to her sitting at a table by herself, and she's listening in on this conversation with these two women who are realtors. And they're talking about how one of them had sex with this guy and was doing some like BDSM stuff or something in one of the houses. And she's like, oh, and I've got to show him the house on Lansdale. And she's like, well, do you need me to get you the handcuffs back? No, it's okay. I have my own pair. Like stuff like that. It's like,
I think they're credited in the final credits as like Psycho Slut #1 and Psycho Slut #2. It's insane. Like the conversation these two characters are having is like, what?
Well, then
she did what?
Well, then it becomes this real meta eye rolling moment because Patrick comes into the diner, sits down, and with his writing partner, her name is Elizabeth, played by Leslie Hope, and she turns to him and says, like, you got to hear this. I couldn't write dialogue like this, which is like you did, like like the writer did that. But the point of this scene is like, okay, he's got this writing partner and they're talking about stuff, but Patrick looks across the street and there's Holly, and she's wearing like she's
wearing her Grey Gardens getup. Yeah.
Yes. And is standing across the street menacingly. And he's like, wow, how'd she get here so fast? What's going on? And of course they do the stereotypical, a big bus or something passes in front of her and woof, she's gone. So immediately there's some kind of, for Patrick, we already know this, mystery about what's going on with Holly. And as the movie progresses, we have moments where it seems like Holly and Patrick are, they're getting along and they seem to be very friendly and there seems to be some level of attractiveness. But then all of a sudden, Holly will get really seductive and be really into Patrick.
Yeah, it's clear that there's some sort of shift that takes place with Holly, and we're like, okay, what's going on here? Obviously, we know the movie is called Doppelganger, so there's an expectation on our part of like, okay, this must be the doppelganger version of Holly, right? The other Holly.
Yes, but at this point, where it's like, has she replaced Holly completely? Is she her twin? What's going on? Because the backstory of Holly gets doled out pretty systematically as it goes on. Early, this sexed up Holly approaches Patrick in the kitchen and makes out with him, and they start going at it. And then a big windstorm happens and blows the windows open, and there's some weird, I guess you can call it, mumbling on the soundtrack.
I guess they say it's like the Santa Ana winds, just like in LA.
Well, they say, but this is important setup, as we will find out. It's this mumbling and what happens when a bunch of gusty wind happens around this Drew Barrymore character. But the next morning, Patrick goes into the bedroom and Holly has this music box that was the opening thing that we saw in the credits. And she's listening to it and he's like, hey, things got kind of wild last night. And she's like, what are you talking about? We didn't do anything together. And he's like, what? And then Holly goes off on this, like, she looks like me, but she's not me. You two can do all the dirty things you want to do, but I don't want to hear about it. And we're like, okay. And Drew Barrymore outright just says, she's my doppelganger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's no mystery at this point. It's like, yeah. All right. There's another you out there, Drew Barrymore, who's fucking your roommate and doing all sorts of other stuff. Apparently, like, yeah, there's a little bit of confusion and mystery earlier on. Like, she began, Holly is becoming friends with this, nerdy, nebbishy writer guy. And she's like, hey, I wanted to go visit the weird Gothic house that I grew up in. Where my brother Frank and I, grew up, and I just wanted to go see it. And so she goes out and gets in the car with her roommate, the protagonist of the movie, Patrick, and she bends over before she gets in the car, and a construction worker played by Danny Trejo says, "Ay, mira los carnitas," which I'm going to dub over with Trejo's actual thing that he says so that I'm not racist.
Well, I mean, he's calling her a piece of meat, and she responds to that and says, like, would you want someone to say that to your sister? And Danny Trejo's like, hey, my sister wouldn't be dressing like she wanted this, and he grabs his crotch, and so she proceeds to knee him in the balls, and then get back in the car and say,
right, but was that Drew Barrymore or the Gerdop?
Well, I mean, this seems to be Holly, because she's still like, not, and at this point, I mean, here's the thing. I'm going to try everything I can not to spoil this movie because holy fucking shit, everybody.
I really do think that you and I should include a spoiler wall before we get to the third act.
Oh, we will. This is a rare occasion because holy shit, y'all. So, Patrick and Holly seem to be getting along fine, even with this, doppelganger, which, to diverge for a second, I want to focus on Drew Barrymore because obviously Drew Barrymore is the marquee name on this. This came out the year after she did Poison Ivy. I think this came out the same year she did that Amy Fisher TV movie. So
I think so.
This is this stretch where Drew Barrymore was consciously, and this started when she was in her teens, but she was consciously rebelling against her child star image by going so far in the other direction. I mean, there's, tons of events like her, flashing Letterman and stuff like that, where she was just embracing being this very, very salacious sex symbol.
Yeah. Well, you can see the kind of progression from something like Poison Ivy to this, where, in Poison Ivy, the movie was cut together with like lots of body doubles where it's like, Drew Barrymore's character is nude, but in close-ups that could be anybody. In this movie, she's just naked.
I mean, and naked
and like
in weird ways.
And naked and like she's showering in blood in this movie.
Yes.
There is this great I don't know, is it a dream? Is it a hallucination sequence where she's just naked in the shower and just getting drenched with blood?
While she's also seeing those visions of shaky trees, and we're getting more of the superimposed Hellraiser thing on her. And it's like, what is this?
Let's take a step back here and let's take a look at this thing a little bit more, in a holistic sense, like the whole of this thing. Like, what are we talking about? While the events of the film unfold and they are interesting and mysterious, the overall vibe you get from watching the film so far is like, whoa. Slow down. What are you doing? Slow down. Whoa, holy shit. Hey, what the fuck is happening? Stop, slow down. Like, that's the entire ethos of the movie, is like, we're going to do it as fast and as passionate as possible. Like, every single line delivery has to be like J.J. Abrams fast and passionate.
I would wager that every scene in the lead up to stuff has at least one moment that made us go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, what is going on? Because here's a great example. At some point, there is a neighbor that calls Patrick and asks him, he's like, hey, listen, I got a package delivered to you. It's here. You can come over anytime you want. So Patrick goes over there and the guy yanks him in, and he's like, listen, like Holly Gooding's living with you. And he's pushing him up against the wall. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, did you do her? What? Are you fucking her? And we're like, what is going on? And he's like, I'm Agent White with the FBI. It's like, what?
Meanwhile, what makes this scene really crazy is that you don't actually see a close up of this guy, and you're like, why aren't they showing him? Why aren't they showing his face? What's happening?
It's super dim. They're shooting these wonderful Bava-esque hard red lights and hard green lights all over this movie. This one, it's a big like hard red light. And to add more confusion to the scene, the actor has been completely dubbed over, clearly.
Yeah, and the lighting changes between setups, by the way, and in a noticeable way. Like, to change lighting between setups in a movie is totally normal. But for the audience to actually be able to perceive that the lighting is changing between setups in really significant ways is really abnormal. And so the whole time I'm going like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like, what is this scene trying to do? Like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. And the guy is talking so fast and saying such wacky shit. And like, the movie is trying to say all of this stuff so quickly, and it's so insane that you're like, I don't necessarily know if I believe what I'm seeing ever.
Well, let me tell you something. I watched this movie for a second time today, and a second viewing is necessary for a lot of this stuff because he is going super fast, and he's saying like, I'm with the FBI. Holly, her mother was murdered, and she's the prime suspect and all this. And then he tells Patrick, he's like, if anything happened, you gotta feed your info to me. And then he says, you scratch my back, I'll lick your balls. And it's like, oh my God. This is brilliantly stupid.
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of ridiculousness that we are always on the hunt for and rarely find.
And it manifests in damn near every scene because it starts to feel like, it almost starts to feel like The Room. Like, there is an ineptness in every scene, like a cinematic ineptitude, where it's like, this guy has some sense of what cinematic technique is, and it's certainly more advanced than somebody like Tommy Wiseau, but it feels inept in ways where the movie is happening upon some kind of magic unconsciously. Like there is this sequence where Holly is invited by her, nebbishy roommate Patrick to go to some like shitty party somewhere in the Hollywood Hills, and all the decor looks like fucking Hellraiser. And midway through the party, the doppelganger personality takes over and she starts dancing like a stripper.
This is like the first, because before when she was talking about the doppelganger, she wasn't talking about like, it's me. She was saying like, there's another like person out there. This is when we get confirmation like, oh no, it's like another personality inside of her, because we get a close up on her hand and she does the same clenching motion she did when she got goo fingers before she killed her mother.
Yep.
And she her persona changes. She starts being sultry and everything. She goes out onto the dance floor and starts very swaying around, being very sexy and everything. And then her nose starts to bleed again. And at this moment, another party goer spills an inordinate amount of wine on a woman, which the wine does not look like any wine ever. It is like Argento red blood, because
it looks
then
like fucking Caro syrup dyed red. It's
yes,
just blood.
Because then Holly looks at this woman and the woman morphs into her mother with the big bloody stab wound, which shocks her and brings back her good personality.
Yeah, when we say morph, we mean a literal morph effect, where it's like, okay, they keyframe this horrible effect, and they can. It's so funny.
It's great. I mean, I'm glad it looks as bad as it does. Like,
yeah,
because it's better.
It makes it even stranger and funnier. Yeah, it really does contribute to like an overall like, I can't fucking believe this vibe.
Well, because I'm going to push back a little bit on your comment about like the cinematic ineptitude. I actually don't think it's cinematic ineptitude. I think it's storytelling. It's not understanding that to be a properly functioning mystery, you can't just have every scene be some other absolutely out of left field bizarro thing. There's no until we reach a certain point. There does not feel to be a connectivity between these mysterious events. They're all just weird fucking shit on their own.
Yeah, and the character dynamics are all like utterly baffling. Like the dynamic between Leslie Hope's, writer partner character and Patrick's writer character is like, there's clearly something going on, but like she is like shouting stuff at him constantly as fast as she can. And none of it ever sounds like it would ever come from a human being's mouth. It's eventually revealed that they had a romance at one point, and he sees some himbo over at her apartment, some guy we meet earlier in the movie, and
the guy from The Frighteners.
Yeah, it's one of the actors from The Frighteners, and she's like, "I'm a slut, you're a slut, everybody's a slut, like let's move on," or something like that. And I'm like, "What?" Oh, she says something like, "Watch your dick, pinhead."
Yeah, she has a bunch of those lines like at the party. Frighteners guy, who I can't look up right now, is dancing and getting really close to her. And
Peter Dobson,
thank you. Who's great in The Frighteners, by the way. He's one of the best things about that movie. They're dancing, and she's like continually eyeing Holly and suspicious of her. And then she goes to the Peter Dobson character. She's like, "If you don't get your hand off my twat, I'm gonna." And I'm like, "What? No one says that. No one says that ever.
Nobody does.
And
no.
but that's what makes it magical, is like, this is an Israeli man who writing this script, who is like, this is his approximation of what he thinks Hollywood people talk like. And it's hilarious.
But it's also obviously stylized, like to be
funny.
Sure.
Oh, I mean, in some way.
He said the stupid horror movie director thing of going like, well, I didn't conceive of this as a horror movie when I wrote it and I directed it. I'm like,
did he really say
movie,
that?
Dude. Like, oh, he did. In
oh
his
my God.
interview.
Well, then this is another one of those, like, thank God for their ignorance.
Even Bill Friedkin said that about The Exorcist. These directors are so up their asses.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, trust me. When we get past the spoiler wall, there is no question this is a horror movie.
Well, I mean, if in the first 5 minutes, Drew Barrymore stabs her fucking mom.
Sure, of course.
Her mom, her real mom, in the heart with a knife, and there's blood everywhere. There's no fucking question that this is a horror movie, goddamn Avi Nesher.
So there's just a bunch of this kind of stuff in the movie, and eventually what happens is that we learn more about Holly's backstory, where when they go to that gothic LA house that she was born in, her and Patrick. She's like, oh yeah, we haven't been back here. Like my brother Fred, he's in an institution and stuff. And while they're there, Patrick thinks he sees somebody up in the window that looks like the doppelganger. He's like, hey, I thought I saw somebody up there. And Holly gets freaked out. I was like, no, you know what? Let's not go. Let's go. I'm tired. And then we learn that she and Patrick go to visit Fred at this institution. And that's when she reveals, like, Fred is accused of murdering their father, that they got in a fight. And Drew Barrymore is talking, the line she says, and on some level, I believe Barrymore is conscious to realize how ridiculous this is, but she's doing the lines correctly, because she says that, oh yes, my brother pushed our father out of a window, and we lived on top of a hill, so he went rolling down the hill, and they never found his body, just a bunch of blood. And Patrick's like, an 11-year-old kid did that to his dad? And she's like, yeah, I didn't know about the doppelgangers then, which is like, which is one of those lines where I'm like, whoa, wait. This is one of those things where somebody just tells you, like, yeah, it's a doppelganger. And it's, I guess, expected, like, you know what that is. Like, no, we don't. But Drew Barrymore does. And she's like, yeah, the doppelgangers can give you incredible strength and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so like, are they science experiments? Are they like some weird thing? But so anyways, Fred is essentially catatonic. Like, he's nonverbal. And Holly is visiting him. And then we get introduced to Holly's psychiatrist, who's played by Dennis Christopher, who, it turns out, if you've got a keen eye, is the guy that was macking on her in the opening credits.
Right. Which I didn't realize until later. After
they flash
I actually
back
finished
to
the
it,
movie. Yeah, they do. But so this guy, Dr. Heller, is somebody who ends up playing
Avi,
a very interesting role in the movie. We'll say we'll reveal that later after the spoiler.
Oh yeah. But I gotta say, Avi, you're hitting those names just right. Like Holly Gooding and Dr. Heller. Yeah, I trust that guy. Like,
so there are these things like there's an attempt on Frank's life.
Fred, his name's Fred.
Where we see, or Fred, whatever his name, the brother, Holly's brother. There's an attempt on his life where we see the doppelganger, the Grey Gardens scarf over the head thing. She goes to the mental hospital that he's being, kept in. It's like, can I see Fred?
Well, yeah, they pitch shift Drew Barrymore's voice down. She's like, I'm here to see Fred.
She sounds like that guy in fucking.
She sounds like the Mothman. Just chapstick. Like
chapstick.
So she stabs the bejesus out of Fred.
There's this great gag done by the wonderful folks at K&B where she stabs through both of his hands. As you see Fred raise up both of his hands and sort of like interlace his fingers together to block the knife, and then you see this knife stabbed through both of the hands toward camera. It's a fucking great gag. Woo!
It's great. Yeah, I mean, we should say I did not know, watching the opening credits, when K&B, Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger showed up as the K&B for effects. I was like, whoa. Wait a minute. That was another, like, what's going on here?
Yeah. This is something that I had found out before Drew did, because I was researching the film and finding images to use in our posts.
Yeah.
Which I do for every episode. And I spoiled myself on something really important in the movie, and I wish I hadn't.
I wish you hadn't either, because, man, y'all are in for a treat. We're getting there, I swear. So after this attack is when Dr. Heller shows up, and they are, at first it looks like they're going to take Holly into custody, but he's there to say, it's like, no, look, she has multiple personality disorder, what we now call DID, dissociative identity disorder. And he talks about, like, oh yeah, like, she doesn't know, what the other one's doing. She's out of, she's not in control, but when she feels things like fear, anger, hatred, the other personality takes over. And it's like, all right, I guess that's what's going on. It doesn't explain the goo fingers or the cameo from Frank from Hellraiser, but okay, something's going on here, and she's got a different personality in her that takes over. So she's going to actually leave LA with Dr. Heller. But then through some circumstances that I can't exactly remember, and I watched the movie hours ago, like
the movie clips along at such a pace that you're just at a certain point, you're just like, fuck it, whatever. Like whatever the crazy movie wants to do.
Well, before this, I mean, Holly and Patrick actually make love together, and it's actually Holly, and it's like, okay,
Right,
like
right.
they're
falling in love.
Well, it's genre romance month. We have to justify this somehow, and it's like so they well, actually.
Look at the poster. The tagline is sometimes love can be a killer.
Yes, and in that instance, Holly seems perfectly fine. You know, the next morning she's doing the creepy movie thing of watching somebody sleep, and it's supposed to be endearing. It's not. Watching people sleep in that function is not endearing. It's nothing but creepy. But Holly's, you know, all nice and everything. So eventually it seems like she's going to be kind of like, remanded into Dr. Heller's custody, and she's coming back and she's like, look, I'd like to keep the apartment, you know, and all this stuff. And, then some more whack shit starts happening because Patrick begins investigating this, and there's a couple different things that happen, and I don't remember the exact order, but earlier in the movie, when we first met Leslie Hope's character, she talked about knowing a phone sex nun, as she calls it.
This is like the Vincent D'Onofrio character of the movie, you know, where they go and they're like, let's find out what's going on supernaturally. You know, Vincent D'Onofrio played this role. He played this role in fucking
Rings.
Sinister.
Yeah, he was in Rings too. They Skyped him. This is, you know, this is Alice Krieg and Stay Alive.
It's basically the movie's consultant, where they're like, "What's going on supernaturally in this movie?" Yeah, exactly.
It's the character that you go to whose only real function is to try and give some explanation as to what exactly is the thing that we're dealing with.
And in this movie, it is a phone sex operator who might also have been a nun.
She was a nun,
but now she plays a nun over the phone sex line.
Yes,
and like there are moments in the scene where Patrick is talking to her where she's like, yes, this is the doppelganger. She's like, you know, she's coming over from one world into the, oh, hold on, I got to answer the phone. And she'll like answer the phone and be like, oh, well, yes, good afternoon, Mr. Smith or whatever.
This is, I mean, there is legitimately, there's legitimately good comedy. Cause when Patrick walks in, there's some lady on the phone. She's just like older lady, and she's just like, oh yes, I am a Vegas showgirl, and I saw you, and I'm touching myself right now. And it's just some lady like reading a magazine. It's an old phone sex type joke. Rocko's Modern Life did it.
Yeah, it's really funny.
But it is funny.
By the way, those offices, like the sort of like hexagonal layout of the walls and stuff, reminded me of Exorcist 2.
Exorcist 2, yeah. well, here's the thing. Like, if you're gonna have this stock scene of like go to the librarian, don't make it a librarian. Make it a phone sex nun.
And it's this scene is really funny. Like I was beside myself. Like, what the fuck does this movie even think it's doing? And clearly it knew it. Like clearly Avi Nesher had a sense of like, yeah, I know this is wacky as shit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he better have, but considering where we're about to go. So the phone sex nun, very casually, like I guess everybody mentioning doppelgangers in this movie besides Patrick, is like, oh yes, you know, doppelgangers are these beings that exist, you know, it with us at the same time, but they exist in another world and they can cross over into our world, and they're, you know, filled, you know, with a bunch of anger and hate, and they push love away, but love is the only way to join the two, you know, beings together again. And this is all like out of the ass. Like, sure, this is maybe what's going on.
I was like, yeah, whatever. Sure. Whatever. I assumed it even didn't matter at that point because the movie was just so like,
oh, it doesn't matter. Like,
no, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Because what we will eventually experience, it's like, who the fuck cares? This is something. So Patrick leaves the phone sex nun, and is out in the, was walking past an alleyway, and a bunch of stuff's like replaying his head, and he sees the doppelganger looking Drew Barrymore with the glasses and everything.
Yeah, all Grey Gardens and shit. And then he follows her down train tracks into like an alleyway somewhere in downtown LA. I mean, just a real, you know, it's like, you know, they shot Strange Days right over there. So he follows her into like a dark tunnel, and halfway through the dark tunnel, like she disappears and then turns into the person we know to be Holly's father in flashbacks. He's got this really distinct scar down the side of his face, and he's chasing him down the tunnel into the LA River. You know, it reminded me of the end of It's Alive. You know, he gets past the fences and he gets, you know, it's like, okay, he's safe.
Additional comedic element to this. a bunch of hobos are just watching this happen and reacting. And they cut to hobo reaction shots.
The reactions are like, what the fuck? Even the hobos are like weirded out by all
this.
Yes. But we know at this point, they're like, okay, there is something afoot. There is a Gerdop afoot that can change its appearance on the fly, right?
So now we're like, okay, is Drew Barrymore some bizarre chameleon shapeshifter skinwalker thing? And it's like, we still don't know.
Right. And the movie seems to be setting that up, like, you know, with all the scenes that we've seen in the movie up to this point, those are the sort of things that we seem to be learning. It's like, yes, there is an alternate Drew Barrymore who can change her appearance at will, right?
Or if it's not an alternate Drew Barrymore, it's what we're presented, that she has multiple personality, but now it's like, oh, she's actually physically changing into different personalities, now including her father, who is presumed dead. So it's like, oh, well, but is it actually her father? Is her father doing, like, what's going on?
Okay. All right. Here's where we put up the spoiler wall.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to say something. As of this recording, Doppelganger is free to watch with ads on the streaming service Tubi. That's TUBI.
Yeah. Go to tubi.tv if you want to watch this movie.
Not if you want to. I implore you to watch this movie.
Please do.
Because I don't, like, stop right now and go watch Doppelganger. There's a bunch of other stuff we didn't even get to talk about, but it's because we have to get past this wall. Oh my God. So fair warning, here we go. It's time to spoil the end of Doppelganger from 1993.
All right. So the first two acts of this movie are like, what the fuck is going on here? This is silly. This is really fucking silly. This is campy. This is bizarre. What is happening here? It is baffling. By the time you've reached the end of the second act, you are utterly baffled. Then the movie starts to deliver on answers.
Yes. Eventually, Holly is kidnapped and taken to her old home, and we see another Holly. It is. It's been a literal doppelganger. There's another Holly here. Come to find out, Patrick shows up and is going to be doing, saving the damsel. And he gets into a fight with evil Holly, and her hair comes off. It's a wig.
He snatches that bitch's wig right off. Boom!
Shazam. And then he tears part of her face off. It's latex. Oh my goodness. Face comes off. It's Dennis Christopher. It's Dr. Heller. And so immediately we need to have the villain monologue explaining, okay, what's going on here?
So, okay, even before that, you're missing the fucking mannequin reveals, dude. The mannequins.
Yes, before that, when Patrick is going through the house, he comes across a mannequin and beats it down thinking it's some person. But then when he strikes a match and goes up to it, he sees it's a mask of Holly's father. And then there's a bunch of mannequins and a whole bunch of people we have met throughout the movie, including like a gas attendant guy played by the Frogurt dude from Lost.
Sean Whalen.
Yeah. A movie producer that was like, telling Patrick that he was going to get him to do a rewrite on a script. That was like a whole thing to distract Patrick. There's some other people I'm forgetting that are on those mannequins.
Oh, it's the FBI guy. The FBI
yes, the FBI guy who was going to lick his balls.
You scratch my back, I'll lick your balls, whatever.
Yes, he's a mask. And it's like, oh, okay, so this is a mask killer. There's somebody who's been, taking these identities. And here's the thing. That is a pretty wild reveal, but it was a little disappointing at first because I was like, oh, that's it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the movie is clearly teasing other things, but let it be said, that is an insane reveal because that's like an episode of Mission Impossible. Like the mask grip is like, oh my God.
I mean, it's absolutely cartoonish as hell. And then Dennis Christopher's...
It's like watching a whole season of Drag Race.
Well, like Dennis Christopher's explanation for it when he says he's like, I'm obsessed and in love with Holly. I was seeing her as her psychiatrist professionally, and then I saw her unprofessionally for years. And it's like,
which explains the first 5 minutes of the film.
Right, exactly. And so what he is just absolutely obsessively in love with her. And he says, he's like, I'm going to have her no matter what, even if that means locking her up. And he gives this whole thing of like, oh yeah, I'm going to murder you and blame Holly for the murder, frame her. And then she's going to be locked away at an institution. And then she'll be mine. And I can have access to her however I want and all this. He also reveals that it was Holly who killed their father and blamed or framed Fred for it, or at least the evil doppelganger side of her did that. But in this moment, Heller says, like, you actually were believing all this doppelganger shit. It's just that she has multiple personalities. And so he's like, I'm really not going to enjoy killing you. And he's coming up and he's going to kill Patrick. And it happens. Oh my God, does it happen, loyal listeners?
So this is the huge spoiler. We get an insane reveal.
The face that I made when watching this, I sent to Travis and was not staged. It was true awe. So Holly starts struggling against her bonds. She's lying on this couch and like to the side of her, these big giant like patio doors, and they're
big French doors that lead out. Yeah.
They blow
open with this huge wind, and the curtains are fucking billowing. And we start to see Holly's hands goop up like they did in the first 5 minutes of the movie. And we're like, oh, something's going down.
Her clothes start tearing, and there's goo on her legs and her face, and the blood is running out of her nose again. And then we go full fucking Chris Wallace fly to fucko. Like, this is a legitimate Rob Bottin from The Thing effects monster transformation scene.
It is insane. It's one of the best transformation scenes I've ever seen done practically. And nobody fucking talks about this movie anymore.
I didn't even know. I had no clue that this was a thing. This was the thing that Travis got spoiled on because they did a big spread of it in Fangoria back in the day, and they show a bunch of the monster puppets and stuff. I had zero idea that this is where this movie goes because this transformation scene is bonkers. There are so many different effects that they use for the sequence in this, to the point where it's not like she just turns into a monster. Oh, no. No,
there's this huge multi-stage transformation where like her body sort of splits in half and then the two halves like twist like in a cyclonic thing.
There's a whole nother monster before that. She melts into like a pupil stage and becomes a dick worm.
That's right. Yeah. She becomes this like big eel-like worm that's like flopping about on the sofa. It's nuts.
And then the eel stands up and covered in fucking gremlin goo just splits in half into these two ultra thin looking like
species aliens. Yeah.
Yeah. They look like the aliens from like The Arrival or Extra 3, but if they were like skinned alive, like Frank from Hellraiser. And this is the thing that we were seeing that they've been, I was like, oh my God, you are fucking kidding me. This is real. This is real. Like, and so these two skin demons, doppelgangers, show up, and the first thing one of them does is knock the other one the fuck out.
Yeah, it sends it back on the sofa, and you're like, okay, there. All right, so there's a good monster and a bad monster, and then the bad monster comes over and it
Mike Tyson's the other doppelganger.
Yeah, truly, with its thin popsicle stick arms. I mean, it's transcendent. And so then this monster goes over to Dr. Heller, the evil doctor that's been, trying to keep Holly captive and stuff like that, and kills him.
Oh, it doesn't just kill him. She punches through a wall at first, and then this doppelganger monster launches him through a window. He flies out the window and is impaled on the gate outside.
It's something that I had like no precedent for. Like, I knew this monster was going to show up, but I didn't know in what capacity. Like, as soon as I was spoiled on the fact that this monster was going to be there, I immediately stopped reading all of their spoilers. I was like, I can't know what truly happens now.
I mean, you were messaging me like, Drew, I can't wait for you to see this. Like, I cannot wait to watch this with you. And you were 100% right.
The Dr. Heller thing for me was a spoiler because I was like, I had no idea that would happen because it was only spoiled in the presence of the monster, because that's what Fangoria wanted to show all the photos of. And so, when the Heller thing happened, I was kind of gobsmacked because I was like, I know there's something else even crazier coming. Like, it's a crazy reveal, but I know some crazier shit is even about to happen. So,
but there's more. There's one other thing that was maybe one of the most magical moments that Travis and I have had in our history of watching movies together. So if you listen at the beginning of this, the whole reason we watched this movie was because of Gerdop in the trailer.
Right.
And throughout the movie, you hear underneath like the score sometimes just this like monster mumbling. We're like, what the fuck is that? Well, when the monster shows up, that's its speech. And I swear to the great Lord above that the monster is going, Gerdop! Like,
It's gird up, gird up.
Yeah, it's just going, gird up.
There are moments where Drew and I talk about the cosmic lattice work of life, and sometimes the lattice work is exposed. This was one of those moments for Drew and myself, and doing this show and being friends, where we're just like, we see the Matrix code.
Yes, I
it
told
says
you.
gird up.
I told you after our screening, I messaged you, was like, for a very brief moment in time, I saw God. Like that was that moment. That monster going, gird up, like was transcendent. Like whatever fucking thing like Buddhists and people who meditate and stuff are trying to reach, I found it with that moment. And it was incredible. Incredible.
I wish I had remained unspoiled, and I sincerely hope you have too, listener. I really do want you to watch this movie.
Yes, but I mean, I can't properly tell you how in beautiful shock I was when this happened.
I really do wish to spark a revival for this film, because
I can't believe no one talks about
the first two acts are kind of like, as filmmaking, remarkable, but like weird, just weird.
Well, that's the thing. Like the movie, even if it didn't have this absolutely just holy moment of this monster, it would still be like, this is a bizarro movie. Like, this is one of those things that's like, this is written by somebody who doesn't understand our plane of existence.
Sure. Yeah. That's the same feeling I get with like The Room, where like Tommy Wiseau, like maybe he doesn't really understand human existence.
Yeah.
In the way that like a normal human being might.
And so like, that's enjoyable. But then this monster reveal happens. And the only reason this is not talked about, I have to believe, is because of the lack of availability for this movie, is in terms of like, a home video release or accessibility on more streaming stuff. Like,
it's in HD. Like if you go to Tubi, you can watch it in high def.
It's high definition.
There are high def copies out there that you can pirate if you want to, but like there should be a Blu-ray of this movie.
It should be a 4K, 3-disc special features. Like this fucking movie. Like I'm like, look, I'm playing this up like 1% for the show, but I'm being honest here. This is what I live for when I talk about like why I love movies. Like this is the thing where it's like you find this thing and nobody's told you about it, and you watch it and you're like, how is this not like shouted from the rooftops? This is ridiculous. Whether or not you think it's good or bad, that doesn't matter. This is something else.
This contains two of the most audacious reveals you and I have ever talked about in a movie plot.
It's wild. I mean, I love this movie, I think. And I wanted to watch it's the reason I wanted to watch it again, because one, I knew I was going to forget a whole bunch of crazy shit. And there's crazier shit that I know we didn't touch on. But,
oh yeah.
But I wanted to be sure. I was like, did I just like this because it was such an enormous surprise? Or is this actually really enjoyable? And upon second watch, I'll admit, yeah, it's like, yeah, it moves at such a clip that it is tough to kind of imbibe all the information you need to. When we were talking about it after our initial screening, you had said it's like, there's stretches where it's boring. And I can't say that it's boring, but it just, the moments, the problem is that every scene, when it does its ridiculous thing and moves, it doesn't move the story forward. It moves it like diagonally and sideways and then goes in a spiral. And you're like, okay, what? That's the stuff that's keeping you running and keeping you involved. So when it's just kind of like the basic mechanics of this person needs to go to this place to do this thing, it's actually not very interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. That's kind of why it reminded me of Mulholland Drive, which would have been my shelf pick had I not already chosen it like a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely is sort of a kindred spirit with Mulholland Drive in that way, and that it
sure,
it has a lot of those sort of same feelings about like the plot is leading me in this like bizarre spiral to another reality where there's this doppelganger of this person. So I have to recommend it. It is bizarre. You may not like it. I'm not entirely convinced it's a good movie, but it may be a great one. Like secretly, it may be a great one. Like low key, this may be one of the most like odd gems we have ever dug out of the trash and dusted off.
This is on that level of like Food of the Gods 2 and Ricochet in regards to finding this thing and being just gobsmacked, not only at what it's doing, but it's like, how is no one grabbed my collar and shaked me and been like, you must see this. This is for you. This was made exactly for you.
It's just as forgotten as Ricochet, but it's also nowhere near as good as Ricochet. Like in a standard filmmaking sense.
Well, I'll say like Ricochet is a better script.
Yeah.
Like it's and it's fucking Russell McKay. Like he's got powers that are not present here in Doppelganger. But the thing is, if Doppelganger was like a slicker movie, I mean, maybe we would like it a little bit more, but it would like it rides that beautiful trash line.
It does. It's stinky. It's got a stink to it.
Oh, I mean, it's like those people, you know, this is one of those movies that I would equate to when you're driving on the highway and you're in your car with your family and you smell a skunk and everybody in the car is like, oh, that's terrible. And you're the one person back there like, I can't tell them I like it. Like it's, you know, it's like you're not supposed to like the stink of this thing, but it is absolutely the perfect odor for GenreVision. Like this is a GenreVision cornerstone movie.
I think that's going to happen over time. I'm not willing to agree with you on the fact that it's like a cornerstone thing. I think that is something that's going to happen over time because I cannot disagree with you on the fact that like, yes, this has the most audacious reveals maybe of any movie we've ever done. It is forgotten. And so you and I take distinct pleasure in digging it out of the trash for ourselves and for others. And bringing light to this like forgotten movie that has like such insane creature effects and like
by K&B. It's not like this is, you know, like effects by Johnny Gueblo. It's like, no,
no. It's like K&B who is doing like Rob Bottin, like The Thing level effects.
There is an
like,
absolute reference to The Thing. Like if everybody knows like the big Thing split face thing, there's a moment during the transformation. It's like they are absolutely riffing on The Thing.
And this looks just as good. Like there's no question.
It does.
This is like maybe some of my favorite creature effects that K&B have ever done.
Well, I'll pull back a little because the actual big rod puppet creature thing, it is unquestionably silly.
Oh, it's super silly. Like its limbs are so skinny.
Yeah, it just is. But my God, I'll take that over every single fucking CG perfect looking thing that we've had in the last however many years, because I will never ever forget how that monster made me feel. Like I love how sick. I mean, for God's sakes, it said gird up. Like I can't not love it.
When it's shambling around on its popsicle stick legs and going gird up, it's impossible not to love.
I love it. That's like the only play I love it. But I acknowledge like this is not, you know, so as far as like being, wow, this is a really truly inspired and brilliant piece of horror literature brought to cinema. No, this is glorious trash, like to the nth degree. And I really hope in our little, very, very small corner of the internet, we can get a few people to watch this movie, because I am utterly flabbergasted that I was able to go in that blind. Like, I can't believe it. I can't believe that is not something that it's like, oh yeah, there's this movie in the 90s where Drew Barrymore turns into like a Heidi Klum version of Frank from Hellraiser.
And then later it turns into two monsters. Yeah.
I mean, it turns into a dick worm, like a giant penis worm. Like,
yeah.
Please.
It's truly remarkable. If you have not seen Doppelganger, please go to Tubi TV and see it right now if you live in the US. If you don't live in the US and can't see it otherwise, fucking pirate it.
Watch this movie. Get people talking about Doppelganger from 1993.
If this was on a Scream Factory Blu-ray, we'd tell you to buy the Blu-ray instead. Like,
yes.
I believe this deserves your money.
I mean, we've done this with them, like Food of the Gods too, like Ricochet. I promise you that as soon as a home media release of good quality is announced for this, there is no question I will buy it.
Yeah, same.
I will scoop it up immediately. So please get the word out there. Doppelganger, it needs to be revived. Now, we do have to head over to the shelf and pick some movies that act as good pairings or substitutes for our main topic. And we encourage you, loyal listener, to go to GenreVision.com and comment on the post for this episode with your shelf pick, because the shelf is this beautiful place that we're building together, this video store of the gods that we create here at the GenreVision Movie Club, and we can only do it with your shelf picks. If you leave a shelf pick, we will feature it on next week's show. Travis, what could you possibly pull off the shelf for Doppelganger?
Very quickly, I am pulling off Andrzej Zalewski's Possession, which I've used as a shelf pick before. But if you've never seen it, it has some of my favorite performances from Sam Neill and Isabelle Adjani. And it also has one of the most insane reveals you'll ever see in a third act of any movie.
I would be shocked to learn that this was not a direct influence on Doppelganger.
I'm sure it was.
Like, it really structurally and where it goes feels very much like Doppelganger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the over-the-topness of all the acting.
It's so funny. It's such a funny movie.
But it's also horrifying. Like,
yeah?
There are moments where, like, the acting goes so far over the top that you actually worry about the actor's safety and sanity.
Yeah, but then there's, like, that fight scene with that guy, and it's so funny.
It's an amazing movie. If you've never seen Zalewski's Possession, you can find the uncut version of it out there. Woof. It is a must see if you're a fan of weird cinema.
Yeah.
I won't dare spoil any more of it. But again, the third act reveals are so insane you'll hardly believe what you're seeing.
It's great.
What are you pulling off the shelf?
Similarly, I'm pulling off Brian Usna's Society. This is actually one also that feels very, very in tune with Doppelganger, because there's stretches of Society where it is like, okay, I'm learning, but this is not progressing in the way that I would necessarily want. But don't you worry, because the third act reveal of Society will also blow your goddamn mind. Like, it is one of the most grotesque, hilarious, unbelievable things that happens in a horror effects movie that you'll ever see. One word: shunting. So Society and Possession, not a bad double. Fuck it, watch Doppelganger and make it a triple feature of just wacko horror movies. That sounds like a great night of movies to me. And before we do our listener shelf picks, we just want to say thank you so much to all the comments we got on the Bound episode. This is one of those things where we put these things out there and we have kind of a gauge on what we think the response will be. The response to the Bound episode was incredible.
That thing blew the fuck up in the comment section. I have no idea why, but everybody was so just alive with comments and recommendations and talking about different aspects of this movie and other movies and like the reviews we had talked about in Apple Podcasts. Like, incredible. I'm flabbergasted. This is so lovely.
Yep.
You all are just wonderful. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It bears repeating. GenreVision has the greatest comments section that has ever existed on the internet.
I believe it.
Well, our listener shelf picks last week include from Hob, Barton Fink. Go listen to our Barton Fink episode. Mr. Milksteak had Dog Soldiers, the Neil Marshall movie, which Travis and I are fans of. Second Honeymoon, the story from the first VHS movie. And The Final Terror, a 80s slash movie with a whole bunch of notable people in it, including Joey Pants. Lee went with Wild Things, Desert Hearts, and Fargo. DT Grizzler went with Bullets Over Broadway. JT went with True Romance and Happy Together. Eric Fuchs and I believe someone else. Let's see. Eric Fuchs and Dwight Egan-Sora both went for The Handmaiden. Dwight Egan-Sora also had Blood Simple, which I think was going to be one of your shelf picks at first for that.
Yes. Yeah, it was going to be. That movie's incredible.
Stephen Nesbella went with an anti-shelf pick of Chasing Amy. Bacon Lettuce Potato went with Wild Things. And Eric Johnson went with House of Games and Things Change. Thank you so much, everybody. As I say, love building the shelf with all of you. And my goodness, one, I pray that some of you watch Doppelganger. And two, I cannot wait to hear the shelf picks for this one.
Absolutely.
So some quick calls to action, but stick around because Travis and I are going to be talking about I believe a fairly new release video game.
No, it's been around for a long time, and I'm not going to talk about it hardly at all.
I'm going to talk about a new release Netflix show. So we get to celebrate this week because we have a new patron over at patreon.com/GenreVision. Renee, thank you so much. Hope you're listening. And now Renee has access to a whole bunch of content, including weekly pre-shows, monthly currently consuming episodes, bonus material. Right now, like we said, if you go over to Patreon, you can listen to the Gerdop incident, as I called it, which is one of my favorite things that's ever happened in the years of Travis and I recording things together. But you can get all that for just $5 a month and become a premium subscriber at patreon.com/GenreVision. And as always, if you love the show and want to help us out, you can leave a written review and rating at the Apple Podcast Store. If you leave a written review, we will feature it on the show, as we did if you go listen to last week's episode, no matter if it's good or bad. Now let's do some currently consuming.
Nom 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 nom.
Travis, what's been on your plate?
I've been completely hooked on the video game Subnautica Below Zero. It is a open world survival game in the vein of things like Minecraft or The Forest, where you are dumped in a hostile environment and forced to craft items to further your survival. And Subnautica Below Zero scratches every itch rather that I want from a survival game. Except, it's not like Minecraft, where you're allowed to sort of like change your environment and like shape the landscape in the way you want it. It's not quite like that. Instead, the map is sort of fixed, and there is a plot and sort of like a quest structure in the game, but nevertheless it retains its sort of openness. But the survival loops of it and the crafting I find extraordinarily satisfying. The sort of undersea stuff on an alien planet, it's two great tastes that taste great together for me, because I like alien shit and I like underwater shit. I'm just so hooked on it. I can scarcely stop playing it. It is even difficult to put it down when it's time for me to go to work.
Is it because I knew of Subnautica, but is this like an expansion or a sequel or?
It's a sequel that largely uses many assets from the first one, but
Okay.
it hones many elements from the first Subnautica. I believe it takes place on the same planet, but in an Arctic region.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I highly recommend it. I caught it on sale. I think it was $20 when I bought it. It has been well worth the $20 for me, let me tell you. But only if you're into open world survival games with crafting. Like if you're not into that shit, skip it. Otherwise, like high recommendation. I'm way into it. Like Drew, this is not a game.
That's
for
a
you.
shame. Yeah. Cause I like all of that except the crafting part.
Yep. Anyway, what's been on your plate?
Well, sort of related to video games. I got about halfway through the Cuphead show on Netflix.
Oh yeah, how is that?
It's okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I love Cuphead. Like it's one of my favorite games of the last decade.
It's the reason you bought an Xbox One.
It was the reason. Yeah, it was the reason I bought an Xbox One was because it was originally only available on that. Big lie there. So I love Cuphead. I thought it was just one of the most enjoyable gaming experiences I've had in years. Just the art style alone, just looking at it is so pleasing to me. And I love that era of animation, like Fleischer Studios, Talk Cartoons, Rubber Hose and stuff. And the Cuphead show isn't that. The Cuphead show looks like it should be that, but it's really more of kind of a modern Nicktoons Cartoon Network type of show.
Huh.
In all honesty, it has way more in common with something like Ren and Stimpy than it does Bimbo's Initiation, one of my favorites of the Fleischer cartoons.
That's disappointing.
Yes, but the big thing for me is that the surreality of those cartoons and what Cuphead took from that to do is so unique and really doesn't happen a whole lot in mainstream animation. This doesn't really do that. It doesn't lean into the awesome surreal nature of the property. It's a show for kids. That should be said too, is like, it's not trying to play directly to adults. Like there aren't a whole bunch of adult jokes or anything. I don't want to down on any particular voice actors, but the dynamic that they created between Cuphead and Mugman isn't interesting. It's basically, it's there in the game, which is like, oh yeah, Cuphead is kind of the foolhardy one who will do something without thinking, and Mugman is the more cautious one. But they just do it with these really put upon like, oh, gee shucks, Mugman, we gotta go get this thing over here. And it like, I couldn't take like more than 6 episodes of that. Their performance was not great. They also, and I know why they do this, but I don't think this was the one to do it with. There is some element of a serialized story going on. Like the first episode has Cuphead losing his soul at a carnival. But then he gets it back. So the devil is, that's the devil's mode. It's like, I got to get Cuphead's soul, where I'm like, the structure of the game was perfectly fine where Cuphead was having to go get other people's souls. And I was like, that's a good, you could translate that to TV. It's just every adventure is just going and meeting somebody else and learning their situation and why they lost their soul. It's not really it. It'll just be, and I wish the show was much more singularly premised based in each episode, like an old 20s, 30s cartoon, like a Fleischer cartoon, where it's just like, all right, in this cartoon, Bimbo tries to steal a chicken and gets chased by a cop into a cemetery, and then the cemetery comes alive and sends him to hell.
Right, and it should only last 6 or 7 minutes, right?
Oh, yes, like, these are whatever.
I would want to see like Steamboat Willie starring Cuphead.
Yes,
that's the kind of thing that I would want to see.
That is exactly what it is, like these just really short, fun, cartoony ideas. But this is much more like mainstream narrative based stuff, even within singular episodes.
That's silly. It's the total wrong format for the characters and for the art form. Ugh.
Well, and here's the other thing. I don't think the art style is that great. Like it's mimicking what people think. Like, you know, like it, as far as like translating the Cuphead style in terms of style guide, like for the characters, yeah, they look like it, but they don't have that character, that flavor that you can get in the game with little to no dialogue from it. Like, you know, I'm not saying that they all needed to, you know, be bouncing up and down in tune with a music track. It didn't need to be that pastiche of rubber hose animation, but it doesn't have that anything goes surreal spirit. You know, there are references to those kind of cartoons. Like there's direct references to stuff like Bimbo's Initiation. But it just does not have, it feels like taking the Cuphead brand and trying to mold it into what every other modern cartoon aimed at kids it tries to do. And that's a bummer, because I think Cuphead's a really unique property and something that, you know, certainly in the video game field we'd never seen before. But the show, I've seen it before. And so I just couldn't stick with it. It's a bummer. I'm not saying it's bad. I think little kids, I mean, of course, little kids will be much more adept to watching this than they are playing the extremely difficult video game. But, you know, I was that kid that was playing Mega Man games and trying to beat them, you know, so that's my very personal perspective on it.
And well, Drew, you're built different.
Yeah, I also I'll have some other difficult video game talk when we do our more currently consuming. That also speaks to my particular the ways I'm wired.
Folks, Drew did not play Elden Ring. Let me tell you.
Oh no, I'm not going to play Elden Ring. That's a little, you know. I tried playing Bloodborne. You know,
it's any 3D game. You know, if you think, did Drew play this game that's in 3D and not 2D? Probably not.
The one I'm going to talk about is Hades. You know, which I mean it's isometric. But anyways, we'll talk about that on more currently consuming. But looking back, I got to say, I think Genre Romance Month, pretty good month.
Yeah, you and I had some fun this month. Really pleased with the flicks we tried. It's a big upgrade over January, that's for sure.
Oh, I mean, by far. But yeah, I mean, January wasn't horrendous, but yes, like February had much more consistency, and thank God, Doppelganger, or Gerdop as we will always call it, it was the perfect period. It was like putting it in that last slot. We were banking on it. We were like, please, come on, we're really hyping for this, and it went beyond our expectations.
Yeah, it not only did it delivered twice on
absolutely
2 huge reveals. So I'm beyond pleased with it.
So yes, next month we'll be kicking off a new theme, which is prisons, and naturally we're starting with the movie Prison versus Fortress. That's the Rennie Harlan film Prison from, I believe, 1988, and the Stuart Gordon film Fortress. We're kicking things off with a brawl in the yard of prison movies between Prison and Fortress. So check those out and come back next week. As always, we want to thank you all so much for listening. I'm Drew Deitch.
I'm Travis Newton's Gerdop.
And we'll see you next Gerdop.
Right here on GenreVision.